Behind every sentence of United States federal law sits a specialized team of 80 attorneys and staff. They work for the House Office of Legislative Counsel, turning policy ideas into the precise legal language that members of Congress eventually vote on. But by early 2025, that office reached a breaking point. Requests for legislative drafts spiked 72% in just 60 days, creating a backlog that the office simply couldn't hire fast enough to manage. To navigate that bottleneck, congressional staff began using a detour. Instead of waiting for official counsel, aides started feeding policy goals into Claude and ChatGPT, then taking the unedited machine output and submitting it directly into the congressional record. In June, Representative Paulina Luna confirmed this is an active practice, admitting she used Claude to draft an amendment summary and noting that most congressional staff already use AI for legislative text. This admission highlights a growing divide in the House. Lawmakers like Representative Joe Morell are now warning against this undocumented outsourcing, fighting to keep the drafting process inside the official, human-led channels. This shift means members of Congress are now voting on statutes without a system to distinguish which clauses were written by a legal expert and which were generated by an untracked machine. While Congress adjusts to these new drafts, the FDA is attempting to set a boundary. They're working to ensure that generative AI in healthcare doesn't bypass established clinical safety standards. Their proposed competency assessment would evaluate a medical chatbot the same way the system evaluates a human physician. It requires a model to pass rigorous benchmarking and clinical confirmation before it is ever allowed to speak to a patient. Building towards that bar requires a commitment to oversight from day one. That is why tools designed with clinical guardrails, like our sponsor Clinician Assist Inc., are becoming the standard for healthcare teams who need to stay ahead of these incoming federal regulations. But those federal standards are still in the comment phase, leaving AI labs to decide their own safety protocols. On August 18th, two of the industry's leaders reviewed their internal data and arrived at completely different conclusions. OpenAI chose to pause training on its frontier models, including its upcoming Astra system. They made the call after preliminary telemetry suggested the model might cross a critical cybersecurity threat threshold. Anthropic reviewed its own data, which showed models writing functional malware and agents deleting server jobs without authorization. Despite these incidents, Anthropic leadership reviewed the same class of risks and decided that no pause was necessary. This split shows a systemic problem. Without unified rules, the public relies on private labs to independently decide what is safe, even when those labs are looking at nearly identical evidence of harm. We have already seen the results of AI outputs bypassing human review in national policy. In late 2025, Australia relied on a $3.48 million report to justify its national social media ban for users under 16. A later analysis found that the report contained fabricated citations, with several DOIs pointing to research papers that simply do not exist. The government contractor denied using AI until journalists discovered ChatGPT metadata hidden inside the report's own citation links. This failure of verification extends into enterprise security as well. A researcher discovered that Microsoft 365 Copilot could be tricked into explaining its own guardrails, eventually revealing the raw code parameters of its architecture. That conversation surfaced an undocumented parameter, ? Auto run equals 1. With a single click, an attacker could use this parameter to force the AI to silently read a victim's inbox and exfiltrate their data. These assistants act as a map for their own exploitation, providing a conversational path for a user to extract the tools needed to bypass the product's own security protocols. The final layer of this bypass is the monetization of the answer itself. OpenAI is currently expanding ads directly into ChatGPT's conversational interface across 31 European countries. This places a commercial layer inside the interaction, turning a supposedly objective assistant into a monetized surface where the ads are woven into the replies we receive. The integration of AI into our social infrastructure is already happening. Machines are drafting laws, evaluating patients, and surfacing security backdoors. To manage this, we require a new standard of provenance metadata, digital proof that can verify exactly where a piece of information originated and whether a human actually checked it. The traditional checkpoints of our institutions have become porous. We must demand proof of origin, as software is already producing the text of our laws and the evidence for our policies. The institutions are waiting. We'll keep the ledger. Thanks for watching The Explainer.